Welcome to Akim Monet Fine Arts, Dallas. I'm very happy to greet you here. It's a beautiful day here in Dallas. I'm going to walk you through an exhibition, Time Capsule, Rodin, the Sculpted Voice. Please come in. I'm very happy to announce that I have several masterpieces, 5 in particular, here in the front gallery. I want to talk about them a little bit. The most striking is Eve. I've handled Eve before. I've sold another version of Eve to a collector, but I've never had Eve in my gallery. I will talk about her in a minute because I want to follow chronologically. So chronologically, the first earlier work out of these 5 is the St. John the Baptist. The St. John the Baptist from 1876 or 1878 comes right after the famous Age of Bronze. So the Age of Bronze, by the way, I have the terracotta here, but I'll talk about it at a different time, the terracotta of the head, which Rodin actually offered to the soldier. But Rodin was accused of molding the soldier, from real life. So from there on, even though he was able to disprove this horrible mythology, he never made a sculpture life-size. It was always larger or smaller. And the first he made right after the soldier is the Saint Jean-Baptiste. So Saint John the Baptist here is naturalistic, not wearing any type of garments that would indicate who he is. Of course, his position as he's walking and announcing the arrival of Jesus gives it away. But it's very interesting that he would show Saint Jean-Baptiste, this extraordinarily important figure in Christianity, as a human, as a normal person. This gives a clue to the next work chronologically. Very soon after St. John the Baptist, Rodin receives the commission to do his lifetime work, The Gates of Hell. The Gates of Hell actually only gets cast in 1928 for the first time. Rodin dies in 1917, so 11 years after his passing. So he starts with the Eve. Again, he doesn't portray the Eve as the mythological mother of mankind. He portrays her as a woman, and as a woman, in fact, who's about to give birth. She's plump, reason being, the model who posed for Eve, Adele Abruzzese, was actually pregnant, and Rodin followed her pregnancy as he sculpted Eve. So she's not portrayed as a mythological figure. She's portrayed as a woman, as a pregnant woman, actually recoiling for what she did, which is the original sin. So showing important historical figures in their humanity. And of course, Rodin is the great student of the human condition, really. He oscillates as well between humans and non-humans, or part humans. So this is how we turn to the Fenêtre debout. So as much as the Eve is recoiling from what she did, the Fenêtre debout exists in all her glory as this really, really beautiful woman who is in fact not a woman. This cast here is 1897, so therefore a lifetime cast. The Saint Jean-Baptiste was cast by Alexis Rudy in 1930. The Ève was cast in 1949, while the Fenêtre debout was cast during Rodin's lifetime in the late 1890s. At one point, though, Rodin starts turning inward. Makes me think of Rilke, whom I credit, making the passage between a certain level of contemplation. Think Caspar David Friedrich looking at the waves in Rügen and feeling in an impressionist or maybe post-impressionist manner, even though Caspar David Friedrich is not impressionist or post-impressionist. He's romantic, German romantic. But there's this idea of how you feel in response to, and somehow Rodin and Rilke, therefore, I would dare say, turn inward. What is happening inside? Listening to one's inner voice. So this is called la voix intérieure, the inner voice. And here we're a little bit later chronologically. We are really going into concept here. We're going into what it is to express what's inside, for me, the foundations of expressionism. In fact, Rodin goes to Vienna, I think in 1902 or 1903, meets Klimt. Of course, there it's happening in Austria. Klimt is Austrian. This idea of bringing out what's inside and listening to what's inside here, the inner voice, is something which is quintessentially 20th century. And in fact, Rilke is very, very taken by the sculpture and talks about it and writes about it. The next sculpture in this extraordinary group of five is the Femme en torsion. So this is a really interesting work. It's called Femme en torsion ou la Désinvolture. What's really lovely is that as much as I was talking about naturalistic depiction, myth, outer versus inner voice, here we have an interesting situation between a sculpture and a woman. Of course, this refers back to Michelangelo and the Non Finito, clearly. But there's something quite beautiful about the relationship between this very sexy, beautiful woman, again, very naturalistic, not at all idealized, but just in how beautiful a woman can be. But at the same time, Rodin leaves the seams apparent, leaves the plaster visible, actually not even the plaster, the clay. You have moments where if you touch it, you can actually have your hand feel exactly where Rodin's hand molded the clay. Here. So, and one leg is apparent, the other leg is not there, coming out of this block of clay. Talk about abstract expressionism. It oscillates between abstraction and realism, but it also oscillates between the representation and the pure gesture of making a sculpture. I'm thinking of Franz Klein, where there's just the brushstrokes to evoke, you know, the power of the Brooklyn Bridge and the power of huge steel structures at the time that Franz Klein was painting in the 50s. So we're almost there here. There's abstraction, and there's also expressionism in the sense that just as Franz Klein is the brushstroke, the black on white canvas, here is clay in form. And from the clay rises the one. So it's to show the extraordinary parcours, the extraordinary road that Rodin goes from a realistic depiction, St. John the Baptist, to the pregnant, beautiful Eve, to the finesse, so somehow between the esoteric and the realistic, to the inner voice with expressionism, and then here, I would dare say, to abstract expression. So here we are. I hope I've succeeded in opening the time capsule, which is this exhibition, Time Capsule, Rodin, the Sculpted Voice. Rodin is still speaking to this day, particularly with these so-called new casts, or recent casts of works that were never cast during his lifetime, simply because they were too progressive for people to understand them at the time. So here we are at Akim Monet Fine Arts in Dallas. Welcome.